And our first speaker today is Mr. Oscar Zalamia.
I was born in a tropical country in the Pacific, the Philippines, which used to be a U.S. Commonwealth, just like Puerto Rico. When I was a child, my dream was to win the soapbox derby so I can come to the United States. I also wanted to see snow, and I wanted to go to Hollywood to watch Shindig. I came here with my three sisters in 1968 and my parents, and I met my wife, Frances, in 1978, over 40 years ago. The way I came into Toastmasters was there was an ad or a poster that said free pizza if you come to our meeting. But I came to the realization that I needed Toastmasters after I fell flat on my face giving a presentation at a symposium. Tonight, my talk is about getting your clients, your customers, your target audience high on THC. You probably thought I was referring to something else. You probably thought I was referring to the chemical symbol C21H30O2, which is the symbol for tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the principal psychoactive constituent of cannabis. But that's not what I'm talking about tonight. Maybe some other time I could give a speech on that. My talk tonight is about tips for connecting with your audience. I came up with a mnemonic, THC, to help you remember my top three tips on effective ways with connecting your audience. My first mnemonic is T. T stands for twist. Sometimes when you're giving a speech, the audience can get too comfortable and fall asleep when they believe your speech is too predictable. Adding a twist shakes things up and catches them off guard. An example is my icebreaker tonight. You thought I was talking about something else, right? But I added a twist. It's really about helping you give more effective speeches. The next mnemonic is H, which stands for humor. Not about what humor is not about what you say, but what you do. It's not necessarily about telling jokes. Humor keeps the audience attention and helps them enjoy your speech. It breaks down the barrier between you and your audience and makes a human connection that's difficult to break. The kind of humor I'm talking about is self-effacing and deprecating humor, which shows vulnerability and that you're not taking yourself too seriously. It also shows you're trying not to be superior. The humor I showed you in my speech night was about the pizza. The third one, which is C, is having a clear message on your speech. You need to have a clear message. You need it in order to connect with your customers, your investors, your potential employees. And if you don't have a simple, compelling message, they won't even bother to listen further. You need to have a clear idea of what you want your audience to think, feel, and do. You want to make an emotional connection. Too often, we make a mistake of being too loquacious, of giving too much information. The best way to tell a story is to personalize it and make a point. A good technique I learned is the mnemonic PEER, P-E-R, P-E-E-R, which stands for point, elaborate, example, and repeat. The point is the crucial part. An example here is you want to make a point about keeping healthy, and you do this by getting sleep. Then the elaboration is an example. Many people squeeze their sleep for work or other important things in life, but this is actually not a smart approach. While you get an additional 2 hours or so, your overall efficacy is hampered because your mind doesn't get enough time to rest and rewire. Now, an example. John, my friend, running a startup company, just piloted to cut 1 hour of working time in the morning, asking his employees to sleep more. Surprisingly, there is a 20% boost in the company's performance, and the employees are now happier and more loyal to the company. The last mnemonic is repeat. When you give a speech, repeat the point. So here's an example. While you might not work in a company that plays nicely with you, remember, rest will enable you to do more. Maybe just try to sleep 30 minutes early tonight and then repeat with a call to action. You'll be amazed by how much time you'll save from the 30 minutes of sleep. In conclusion, remember my acronym THC. Use twist, use humor, and give a clear message. And then if you use my technique of PEER, have a point, elaborate, show an example, and then repeat, you will see that your speeches will be much more memorable and very effective, and you'll get your audience, you'll connect with them. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Oscar, for that wonderful icebreaker as you start your presentation mastery pathway. I was totally intrigued by the title, Get Them High with THC. I was excited to find out which drug you would recommend to us. And I also worried if it would get us in trouble with Toastmasters International.
Yes.
But then you set it up and you gave us a much more benign speech. As a distinguished Toastmaster who has achieved the highest distinction possible as a speaker and a leader, your speech clearly demonstrated why it is so important for our experienced speakers to speak more. Your speech was a masterclass in what a high-quality speech should be. You shared a story, and storytelling is highly encouraged in Toastmasters. You also shared some humor. You also shared the power of three. You talked about twist, humor, and clarity, and I finally found out what drug you were talking about. And your speech had all three elements. I also enjoyed how you brought your speech to life with your gestures, your vocal variety, and your use of language. Your cadence and delivery was also very enjoyable. And I also enjoyed how you organized your speech. I also enjoyed the fact that you stood up and you used the space despite the Zoom environment to bring the speech to life. But as with every good speech, we always try to give you some suggestions. And what I would recommend is, because this was a 4 to 6 minute speech, I still remember the recommendation you gave me, which is, in a 4 to 6 minute speech, talk about one topic perhaps and not as many as you talked about, because at the end it did seem a little rushed. As a challenge, I would also love for you to experiment with virtual environments, because you have the opportunity now to maybe put up a slide as you demonstrate humor, maybe a cartoon, because a lot of the speeches are nonverbal. A lot of the communications are nonverbal. So maybe you could show us a little bit more of that nonverbal communications, right? Because that would be a fantastic demonstration for all of us. It would stretch your skills, but it would also inspire us with ideas. But overall, it was a masterclass, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to evaluate your beautiful speech.
Thank you, Dr. Mansur.